Emily, Dave. We're hanging out. We're giving folks about 10 minutes to show up. We're going to be talking about wicked hard decisions today. This is Product Tank World Product Day.
Yeah, welcome everybody. Also from the Product Tank Zurich team. We have Emily, Pia, and myself on board today. And you'll see the rest of the team later in the show.
Cheers. Yeah, it's very good to have you here, Gibson. I mean, have you, right? It's kind of, yeah, have you online. That's wonderful.
It's even better than in person, I promise.
One of the positive things about the lockdown, we get speakers. On one hand, we get speakers from all over the world now, and we also enlarged our audience quite a bit. Yeah, usually it was either people in Bern and Zurich. And last time we did Product Tank Bern about a month ago, we had people joining from India, from Mexico, if I remember right. So that's a really cool thing happening at the moment.
Oh, for sure. I started Product Tank World Product Day in Brisbane yesterday. It was 7 in the evening my time, and there were people from Egypt, which is way cool.
Wow.
I'm always fishing to figure out who's the furthest from me in San Francisco. So Emily, has anyone joined us yet? Can you tell?
Yeah, we have already 12 people that are early birds like you.
Fantastic. Well, why don't you guys tell them how to set up Slido?
Yes, we're using Slido today, both to be able to answer some fun questions and also to be able to submit submit your own questions to Gib. And you can already join Slido with just scanning the QR code here. Otherwise, you can go to the website, slido.com, and we have a code, which is 1998.
Yeah, so we got a first person on the chat. So Saki Mill is joining us from India. That's really cool. Welcome.
Which city?
So Saki, if you heard the question, it would be cool if you could share the city you're joining us from. Oh, now we got Alpha from Paris also.
Okay, Pia, how stressful has COVID-19 been for you?
Yeah, for me personally, it has not been stressful at all, I would say. Yeah, I was lucky enough to have to even start a new job during that time. I mean, that's kind of extraordinary, right? I'm feeling very grateful. Yeah. What about yourself?
You know, I just answered very stressful, and I encourage people all over around the world to start test driving Slido with some warm-up questions. Yeah, for me, you know, I have 83-year-old parents and a senior community. I have to sort of worry about them. I got 22 and 24-year-old daughters. Our house internet is not perfect, which drives me crazy. My wife's a physician and scientist. She works for Bristol Myers Squibb, and you know, so initially she was spending 6 hours a day on the phone talking about COVID-19. So we're very well informed, and we started really trying to figure out effects sort of last week of February, which is probably earlier than most, because that's what it means to live with a physician scientist. Okay, related, Pia, how long do you think it will be before things are almost normal?
Oh, wow. So there is kind of two parts, I think, to that question. I would say, first of all, I thought like 1 or 2 years, right, until we get the vaccine and everything, and then we'll turn to normal. But then I had a kind of I was in a train today, and we were 4 people actually sitting quite close together, and everyone seemed to be fine with it. That was like, are we back to normal now? Like, this feels strange.
Yes. How about you, Emily?
Yeah, I put in 1 year, but I guess we'll see. In other news, we have a couple more people joining us. We're up to 24 people, and we have Maria from Zurich, Thomas from, actually, we don't know where you're from, Thomas.
He's from Bern, from Malta, actually. I used to work with him, so cool. Welcome, Tom.
Hey, so Emily, if there's 24 people out there, how come only 10 people have answered this question using Slido? What's up?
They probably haven't figured out that they should scan the QR code.
Oh.
Yeah, join us in Slido. It's really fun. The
Yeah,
questions
so for the
just
new
get
ones,
better
it's
and
really
better.
easy. Yeah, you just scan the QR code that you can see on your screen with the mobile phone. So if you're watching us on the mobile phone, it's a bit harder. You got to install Slido or open it on the mobile web and then enter the code 1998. So 1989. That's easy to remember. You can join us. You can answer the questions, and it will show up on the screen magically. So Gib set that all up for us. Really cool way to interact with the show.
Hey, super bonus points today when I'm giving my talk. If people can take cool photos, the best photos, like, can use your phone, but do it in, panoramic view, not this view. If you see a cool slide anyways, I'm collecting photos from all over the world. You can just share them on Twitter. I'm at GibsonBiddle.com or at Gibson Biddle, forgive me. In the bottom right corner of most of my slides, you can see that. Okay, so where are peeps from?
Yeah, they're joining from all over the world. So we got the first person who outed himself from Canada. So outside of Toronto, Aaron Stewart is joining us. And then we got Jim from London. So Jim supported as a company that I previously worked to. Hi, Jim. Cool to have you on the show. And Saki, no, she or he didn't tell us. Yeah, there we got it. So back to the question where Saki is located in India. It's Ayodhya in Uttar Pradesh.
Good, I can see Ayodhya now. That's great. Yeah. And then I haven't seen Tirana. Come on, Tirana. I want to see you. Oh, there's Tirana. Good. I'm using my my best Boston / Toronto accent.
It's pretty good.
Tirana.
So now we also got Wallis, which is famous for skiing. So if you ever want to go skiing in Switzerland again, you got to go to Wallis. So Zermatt or wherever you want to go.
Wait, I don't see it on Slido yet. Oh.
Well, it's pretty small.
Right next to Zurich on the right side.
Oh, good. Wallace. Got it. My pronunciation was perfect, right, Pia?
It was absolutely perfect. And I've also seen at least two peers from Emily and me from Product Academy that we've joined last year, where we've done a mentoring program. So hi to Maria and Noemi, who I've spotted. Good to see them here.
So Aaron's really glad of Toronto. Sorry, Emily, go ahead.
No. I just started watching a TV show about Ireland, so I got excited about George from Dublin.
Okay. So just to repeat myself, Aaron was happy with, he just chatted and said, good job, Gib, with the Toronto.
Yay, Toronto. Ask him what cool neighborhood he's from in Toronto.
Yeah. So we got two people from joining from Germany. So Daniel is from Cologne. And we got Barbara from Berlin also joining. And then we got Ravi also joining from India. Welcome, everybody.
Looks like
and if you haven't done it yet, join us at Slido. So just scan the code from mobile phone if you're watching us from a desktop. And otherwise, enter the code at slido.com. The code is 1989.
Hey, Emily, can you make you look big instead of me? Woo!
Yeah. And we're up to 40 people now on the YouTube channel. Awesome. And we have 29 in Slido, so keep scanning the QR code to be able to join.
By the way, what Emily just said is 10 of you haven't answered the question in Slido yet. This is called Slido shaming. But Dave, you brought it up. It is a little awkward if you're on a mobile device. So we forgive you if you're on mobile.
Yeah.
But most folks these days are on their laptop, and then they use their phone for the Slido, which is cool.
Cool.
All right. We're movie tastes. Have you guys watched Stranger Things yet?
I haven't. It's on my my list, but I haven't.
That's fine. Hey, whatever answer you give, there's no right answer here, Dave, and that's the case for everything here.
No, but I got to tell you, because I checked my list this morning. I recently bought a water rower, so one of these indoor rower thingies, and for half an hour, 1 hour workouts, I have it in my living room, so I can watch Netflix to it.
Cool.
So I checked my list, and it was on the top of the list. So, but I watched something else instead.
I'm actually a little surprised. Certainly, I'm used to about 60% have watched Stranger Things. How would I say it in German?
Stranger Things in German?
Yeah.
Yeah, Dave?
Yeah, I'm wondering if so the first thing that came to my mind would be komische Dinge, which is the literal translation. But there's more to it than that.
Cool. And then how about any of you watch BoJack? If you're just joining, we're just warming up the engines. We'll start in a minute or so. Have you guys watched BoJack Horseman?
Oh, I haven't. I don't even know if it's available in Switzerland.
Oh, it's available.
We got to wait for a lot of stuff for a long time. And that's actually the question my older daughter told me to ask you, Gib. It's like she watched all the Suits seasons.
Yeah.
And 8 to 9 are not available in Switzerland. So
well, I will answer your daughter's question as long as she submits it using Slido.
Okay. I got to tell her.
Get on it. How old is she?
She's 15, so turning 16 in August.
Cool. Here's my last question. I call this provisional decision making. We'll start up in a minute. Would you launch a new feature if you're the head of product at Netflix called Netflix Party, and it lets members all over the world watch the same movie at the same time? They can chat, heckle, comment about it. So it lets things magically sync up so people all around the world that are members can watch the same movie at the same time. And this is a case that I'll be bringing up at the end called Netflix Party. Provisional decision making, I give you very little data, and then a little later we'll give you more, and we'll see if we change hearts and minds. Can you guys remember that it looks like about 80% of our audience today would like to launch it? And then, yeah, a reminder, anybody that's commenting in YouTube, I love it if you use Slido to let me know what you think. I'll be doing quite a bit of this today. I will be answering questions. If you do it within Slido and upvote it, it's awesome. At the end, we've got Pia, Emily, and Dave. They'll be monitoring both Slido and the comment system on YouTube. But for the polls and questions, I'd love it if you use Slido because it really helps me. Got it. Okay, you ready, Dave?
Okay. Yeah, I am.
Go for it.
Cool. I think so. Yeah, we'll start with 3 minutes past our announced starting time. So welcome everybody joining us from all over the world. We just got Fabian from Lucerne also joining us. It's World Product Day 2020. It's the 10 years anniversary of Mind the Product, who's behind ProductTanks. And so it's a big day to celebrate. We got several ProductTank sessions happening all over the world. So you can even join other ones after our show, but I hope ours will be the best. So, and Gibson, for the ones who just joined, said, okay, take photos with your phone. Happy to do that. And you can use Gibson Biddle as a hashtag. He's on Instagram. And please also use ProductTank and World Product Day hashtags so that other people can find and see what they missed out on. So very warm welcome from our team. You get Emily, Pia, and myself on the screen. We get Tanya and Dominic showing the background. All happy to have Gibson Biddle on board tonight. Of course, we get our partners usually supporting us locally, now helping us with the remote sessions. So thanks to Crowdhouse, Scout24, 89 Grad, Phase 2, Namix, and the Product Academy for your ongoing support, even in these difficult remote times. So for tonight, so we started the session a bit early for the people who also wanted to join us early. After this brief introduction, we'll start the show with Gibson Biddle. This will be finished around 8-ish. We don't know exactly. And then we start Q&A, but there will be questions throughout the show. So please, if you haven't done it yet, install Slido or open it with the QR code. So if you're on a laptop, you can just take a photo with your mobile phone and it will open up magically the right room. If not, you can enter this 1989 code and then answer the questions. Of course, on YouTube, you also have a possibility to ask questions, but we won't see the answers in the slides. So please use Slido. And we'll be finished maybe at the 8:15, also a bit depending of your questions. It's going to be flexible, so Gibson has time, which is really cool. Yeah, so we're happy to introduce to you Gibson Biddle. I guess most of you have already heard of him. He worked for Netflix, VP of Product between 2005 and 2010. Then moved on into a CPO role at Check, which is textbooks online, so you can actually share textbooks or get them online. And then moved on to some other stuff, does a lot of speaking nowadays, and is also a lecturer, external one at Stanford University. And he's talking tonight about Netflix Wicked Hard Decisions. So really proud and glad to have you here. Thank you very much, Gibson Biddle, for joining us tonight.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Emily. Thanks, Pia. It's fun to be here. I wish I could be there in person. Dave did my background. I joined Netflix in 2005 and then went on to my next startup in 2010. But I've kept up with my pals, and I'm going to be talking about some wicked hard decisions. So I don't know if you can pick up my Boston accent, but I'm going to just talk about these wicked hard decisions. Maybe the Toronto person can pick it up. And this talk is really, I just want you to come away with a couple of things. That this is not about strategic genius. It's actually practiced art. And so I'm going to help. We're going to do some cases today, and I'm hoping that I'll be able to demystify making these wicked hard decisions. I do a lot of cases. You can ask questions in the comments, and Dave or Pia or Emily will nicely relay them to me. But really, I want you thinking hard about these questions. I want you to, ask yourself, if I were the head of product, what would I do? And this is a really safe place. It's low consequence. And the other thing you'll notice is there are no right and wrong answers. It's just what Netflix chose to do. And then, I'm going to be looking for a little bit debate. And so I'm going to throw you right into the shallow end of the swimming pool right away. And to know me is this word throttling. It was invented for me and for Netflix. Today, when people hear the word throttling, it's usually bad. They perceive that the internet providers will damp down the amount of bandwidth if people are using it too much. But it came up for us because of a particular problem. Netflix began as a DVD by mail company. That's how we started. We didn't launch streaming until 2007. And back in the DVD era, you create a list of movies you wanted, and then we'd send these red envelopes back and forth in the mail. And we had a problem, which is when a new release DVD came out on DVD, 3 months after it came out in the theater, everybody wanted it. And then 6 or 8 weeks later, the demand would drop down. So our particular problem was we can only afford, say, 25,000 copies of a disc, but 50,000 people wanted them to show up the next day in their mailbox. And so the really simple question I'll put to you is, given that the demand outpaces the amount of discs, what would be your algorithm for who gets the disc? Or a simple question that I'm now posing to you using Slido, who gets the first new release DVDs? Who do you give them to? And I seek ideas essentially about the algorithm design. Who should get this very limited resource? And we couldn't afford more because we knew 6 weeks later everybody would be happy. But who gets them the first? How you doing, Emily? Who should get the disc?
Did you guys have a pre-order kind of thing on the list that you could order the DVDs?
Good. So we didn't. You would put a title that you wanted the next day at the top of your list, and their expectation was they would get the next title on their top of their queue. Unfortunately, we could only give them to half the people. So the real question is, who do you prioritize here? And then you brought up another question: could you let people pay for more? And that's a good idea. We chose not to do it, to keep it simple. Okay, so I'm seeing lots of questions run in. What do you see, Pia? Any good ideas here? Anything that strikes you as a good idea?
So loyal customers obviously already gets voted up, right? And then we have requested, ordered.
Yeah.
Your mates.
Yeah, and the turnover time.
Okay, good.
There's time, but I don't know if it's turnover time.
Great. Yeah, Dave's suggesting you can optimize for total goodness. So somebody who's close to where these discs shipped out of, give them a disc. Presumably they would return it faster. And then I see a lot of, I love first come, first serve, right? That's first in, first out. It could be random, right? And then I see the loyal customers, and I also saw the new customers. So the loyal customers, the most loyal are the ones that have stayed with you, forever. And that means give preference to existing members. And then the other one person suggested, give them to the new members to make sure that they have a great initial experience. And there's some good and bad ideas in both of these. So I'm going to bring you back to what we did. Our theory was as follows. If you would watch 20 discs that past month, you had gotten a lot of value out of the service. And so we put you at the back of the line. And if you would watch 0 or 1 discs that last month, you had gotten no real value. And so this was our allocation, but we failed to put it in the terms of use. Okay, this thing that frickin' nobody reads. And because of that, we were sued. There was a $5 million class action lawsuit by some bright lawyers, 2 30-year-old. And at the time, our total revenues were about $200 million. So this $5 million felt like a lot of money to us. It felt like the difference between profitability or not, of getting raises or not. It felt really, really bad. And I want you to think about the reasons that you might do this or might not. And I want you to think about whether this is a high stakes decision, a big deal, or not. And so some of our thinking was, we said, well, we don't want to give we essentially thought of them as patent trolls. If we do what they want, we're going to get sued by every patent troll after this. So we're going to fight. On the other hand, we didn't really know how much time or money it would cost to fight. And what if it was a long, protracted war, and forever they were creating this phrase throttlers for us that might hurt the reputation of the company? So I've just sort of given you the back and forth, and I just want you to think, if this was your decision at Netflix, would you choose to fight or would you settle? Pay the $5 million or fight and fight hard? And I'm going to put that question to you using Slido. So I just want to see the wisdom of crowds here. Make a decision. What would you do?
That was mine.
You're a settler, Dave.
Yeah.
Well, we got a lot of settlers out there.
I don't know a lot about. I don't know a lot about class action lawsuits in the U.S.
Yeah.
But I guess it's an expensive mistake. It's $5 million, but you learned a lot. So next time you adjust your policies up front.
Got it.
I don't know what happens afterwards.
Do you think this is a high stakes decision or a low stakes decision?
Gut feeling is high stakes.
Oh, that's a very good intuition. Okay. Remarkable. It's 50-50. I've never seen this before. It's an absolute dead heat. I'm going to tell you what we did. We fought the lawsuit hard, and then we settled. Okay. So it was a surprise to us how much time and energy this took up. Our estimate was we could sort of put it to bed in maybe 3 months, and it lingered for 2 years. And during that time, the Netflix brand got entangled with this idea of throttlers. I would go to a cocktail party, and they say, "You bastard, you're a throttler." And our fundamental mistake was that we treated it as a low stakes decision, no big deal. And Dave, you were right. It was a very high stakes decision. Mm-hmm. And I just want to share what we learned from this. So first, I learned that the details matter. So from that point on, every 2 weeks, I had a product manager essentially scrubbing the terms of use to make sure everything was represented. And then the other thing, and I've already pointed this out, ask yourself in most of these decisions, is this a high stakes decision or a low stakes decision? And we had failed to understand that it was actually high stakes. We treated it as low stakes, no big deal. We didn't think about it. We didn't argue about it enough. And then there was a positive piece of news. And this happens with all startups. So you're a punk startup, you're growing up, you don't have much money, you don't have resources, and you start doing things that are a little bit yicky, a little things you're not proud of. And this throttling one was like, was this the right thing to do? And at this point, we said, we're going to be fully transparent about everything that we do. And if we're uncomfortable being transparent about it, we will stop that practice. So we had essentially a yicky list. And this was us, barely beginning to grow into adolescence as a company. And I'm really too embarrassed to talk about some of the other yicky practices that we stopped. And so this was a real growing up moment for us. All right, so I threw you into the shallow end of the pool right away. Just to warm up the engines, to get you used to Slido, to get you used to thinking about these debates. And so I'm going to back up and give you some more context on Netflix. I'm going to talk about the history, some of the strategic thinking. And then I've got 3 more cases, just like that. They're one from 2007 and 2 from today. And so you'll be able to exercise your thinking. And then at the end, I'm going to try to abstract it and say, okay, what can we learn about how to make great decisions about people, product, and the business? How you doing, Emily, Dave, and Pia? Are you guys happy with the setup, everything?
Yeah.
Cool beans. Okay.
Yeah.
I love Slido.
Okay. So this is what Netflix looked like in 1999. And my thing is all startups suck in the beginning. If you look carefully, hey, no laughing at me, Dave. You could.
No, I'm laughing at the website, not at you.
It cost about $4 to rent a disc. It would show up like 8 days later. There was only 2,600 DVDs available. It sucked. And this is what it looked like by 2007. You can see some progress to it. And then when I did a screen capture, I'm always revealing my bizarre tastes in movie and TV. Apparently Netflix they think there's a 98% chance that I'll enjoy The Circle. But this, I hope you see some progress. I hope you're not laughing at the site today, Dave.
No, I'm not.
All right, so here's a brief history. Company started in 1997, and there was a test. The 2 co-founders, Mark Randolph, sent a audio CD, a Patsy Cline audio CD, to the other co-founder, Reed Hastings, in the mail, and it arrived unbroken. That gave them the insight that you could send DVDs through the mail. This is when the DVD player was being born. And then in 2000, they basically invented this all-you-can-eat DVD by mail subscription. That concept didn't exist. And then we took the company went public in 2002, and it was brutal. It came out at $7.50 a share, and by the end of the day, it dropped to $2 a share. What had happened is there was an anthrax scare about that time, and people were afraid to open their envelopes for fear of that white powder killing them. So it was hard. We actually invested 1.5 years into launching our DVD by mail system into London, into the UK. And with 1 week before the launch, there was a rumor that Amazon was going to launch a service in the US. And because of this, we canceled the launch and focused all of our energy back on the US. That was really messy and dirty. Imagine if you were an engineer, you lived in London for 1.5 years. Finally, we called it Watch Instantly in 2007, January. We had 300, steamy romance titles. That's what our customers call them, and that's code for something else. Our content was stinky, but obviously it grew up over time. We couldn't use the word streaming because customers thought that meant streamlining, which sounded bad. In Canada, in Toronto, we launched the first streaming-only service in 2010. And obviously, the first big hit with House of Cards was in 2013. That was the beginning of an original content era. And then now we're in 190 countries, Netflix is. And it's got 183 million people around the world. A market cap's nearly 170 billion. And last year, Netflix got 24 Oscar nominations. That's more than HBO, which was considered the leader in original content and series. So think about a punk DVD by mail company growing up to be a leader in storytelling. It's really pretty cool. The product vision, pretty simple. We're going to get big on DVD, DVDs by mail going back and forth. And then we were going to lead downloading. That's the word that we used back in 2005 when I started there. And then we were going to expand worldwide once we were digital service. And then the fourth step was to be in original content. Now, we weren't that smart. We actually experimented with exclusive content, original content in 2007, 2008. It failed in the DVD era, but it worked for a variety of reasons finally with House of Cards. And then we were trying to create this virtuous cycle. And the way it works is that the more customers that you have, the more our odds of getting the device manufacturers in the world to set us up so that people could stream. Back then, it was the game systems. It was Xbox and PlayStation and the Wii. That we needed more customers to get to the devices, and this was hard. And then the more content that we have, the more customers. And this virtuous cycle took a really long time to get going. There was a real challenge in getting any of those device manufacturers to let you stream where you wanted, which was on your TV. But it's worked great. More customers, more devices, more content. Even there's a new virtuous cycle where more content providers are on the cycle. So Netflix has been building and buying studios all over the world, creating international stories for people all over the world. It's way cool. So the product leader's job, the way I think about it quite simply, is your job is to delight customers in hard to copy, margin enhancing ways. And I want to talk a little bit more about what this means. Margin enhancing, just a fancy way to make money. And I'm hoping that today all of you are delighted by all of these things. Are the things that you like about Netflix, Emily, on this list?
Definitely the watch anytime, anywhere. And
Cool.
I like the original content.
Good.
Definitely.
And lots of experimentation, and we got to this place. The hard to copy is a little bit more nuanced. I just want to share why it's so important. So 2005, HB Mock worked for me. He was the product manager. This was the front door of the site. And the front door's job was to get you to click on that start free trial. And he was so excited because he put a happy family on the couch and inspired more people to click on that start now red button. He had delighted more people, brought them into the system. He improved the business. The conversion was better. And I said, hey, that's great. But I'd love you to focus on doing things like that that are also wicked hard to copy. Because if you don't, our competitors are going to copy us, okay? And I sort of bet my salary that within a month, our key competitor at the time, Blockbuster, would indeed have a happy family on the couch. And that's exactly what happened. And so I'm just trying to reinforce how important it is to do stuff that's also hard to copy. So that's the question I want to pose of everybody today via Slido. What is hard to copy about Netflix? Or if I gave you $500 million to create a startup to compete with Netflix, here's the money. What would you find tricky about competing with Netflix? What about Netflix is hard to copy? And I seek your ideas, and we will build a massive word cloud reinforcing some level of agreement or disagreement. And just so you know, I'm fishing for 4 categories of ideas. And in a minute, I will share what those 4 categories of ideas are. Pia, is the stuff that you think is hard to copy on the list yet?
I put in original content. So yeah, what you just mentioned, right? But
good. Dave, the stuff that you care about, or do you think hard to copy? Is it on the list?
Well, I also, my first thought was the content, but actually, so I'm a father of 2 daughters. The pricing is also reflecting a family budget, and with the individual accounts and having control, so that my younger daughter doesn't watch the same stuff as my older one does.
Totally.
That's maybe not hard to copy, but that's things that make a difference for me as a user.
I'm totally wired with you. There's one thing missing, and actually it was related to one of the things that you love about Netflix, Emily.
Which one?
I'm giving you
the recommendations.
No,
it was the anywhere, anytime.
Anywhere.
Yeah.
Okay. You guys have done great. That was the one idea I haven't seen. So let me debug this for you. So what makes Netflix hard to copy? I loved it. I saw the brand there, which is way cool. We were trying to build this product where movie enjoyment made easy. That was the brand promise. It still is today. I was fishing for a specific network effect. It turns out we were able to create this device ecosystem. We eventually got Xbox and Wii and PlayStation to work with us. Every Blu-ray player in the world. I mean, you can stream anytime, anywhere. And that device ecosystem was a hard-to-copy network effect. Dave, you brought it up, the unique technology, all about personalization. You've got a profile for each of your daughters. And then I saw original content. That's bang on. That's exactly right. The way I think about that is Netflix has a huge advantage because of what I call economies of scale. Because they have 183 members today, million, they're able to spend $20 billion this year on content. And that's a huge advantage, and they can do it in a valuable way. Whereas poor Amazon can only spend $8 billion, and Disney Plus is probably at $5 billion, and Hulu's at $3 billion, and Apple's only at $2 billion. So that economy scale gives you hard to copy advantage. And then the margin enhancing, that's just a fancy way for making money. So yeah, they invented the all-you-can-eat subscription. Lots of price and plan testings happening forever, trying to get the balancing act between the value and the price. And Dave actually brought that up. We actually were struggling to make money. We actually were selling all of our used discs, and we did ad banners for a few years on the site, just anything we could do to make money. But today, one of the huge drivers of economics is Netflix's ability to predict how much money they should invest in each TV show. And I call that right-sizing their original content investment. So Netflix predicted that about 100 million people would enjoy Stranger Things. This is based on all their personalization data. And because of that, they were comfortable spending $500 million. And they also predicted that about 20 million people around the world would watch BoJack Horseman. And because of that, they were comfortable spending about 100 million. And this is the concept of right sizing and just making sure they want to provide all the content that everybody wants. They just want to make sure the level of investment is right. And this is a huge economic driver for the company. So then now think about it. Your job as the product leader is to come up with these hypotheses about how you might delight your customers in hard to copy margin enhancing ways. And to be effective, stuff really has to delight your customers. It's got to be used by them, but super bonus points if it's also hard to copy and drives margin. And so here are 8 high-level theories that we pounded on for a bunch of years. And I want you to think about, like, what percentage of them were right? And I know you're staring at it like, does this exist or does it not exist? And the answer is, initially, we only got it right 3 out of 8 times. It turns out we had opened up our application programming interfaces. That enabled the device ecosystem. And then I already told you that we failed in 2008 with exclusives, but it worked in an era of streaming. So this is hard. Inventing the future is hard, lots of trial and error. Notice in that bottom left corner that we tried a social approach. That we would connect you with your friends. You could get great movie ideas from your friends. And there's a bunch of failures in that theory I'll talk about later. And then I'm just going to share you at a high level. This is the slide that's supposed to make me look smart. So at any time, we were testing 2 or 3 other high-level ideas that failed. And I showed you a bunch of those failures. And at any moment in time, we had projects or tactics against each of the strategies on the left. So in personalization, we actually started with something called the ratings wizard. There was a tab that said movies you'll heart, with a little red heart that the design team thought was fugly. And if you clicked on it, it said, hey, the more movies that you rate, the better we'll do at finding you movies that you'll love. That's an example of a project or tactic. In that case, that gave us the personalized data. And then at any moment in time, we had a proxy metric. So the job of the product was to improve retention. So that was the high-level engagement metric. Some people call it a North Star metric. And at startup, 10% of our members canceled. In 2005, about 5% canceled every month. And today, about 2% canceled. It was all these high-level theories and hypotheses, these product strategies that made the service better and better. It's really hard to move retention. So we needed more specific proxy metrics for each. And our proxy metric for personalization, for instance, was the percentage of members that gave us at least 50 ratings, 50 pieces of data about their movie tastes by the end of month 2. And I want you to think about that. What would your guess be? What did we drive that number to? What percentage of members gave us at least 50 ratings by the end of month 2? And I put that question to you in Slido. And this is where I can see the range of youthful optimists with the bigger numbers and their curmudgeons with the smaller numbers. Where do you come in on this, Emily?
I said more than 30%. I guess I'm a bit of an
You are
optimist.
my youthful optimist. I love you. How about you, Dave? Where did you come in?
I took the first option, 0 to 5%.
Oh, you're my skeptical curmudgeon. That's perfect.
No, I'm an optimist of experience.
Ah, I see. Oh, nice redefinition. What are you, Pia? Where'd you land?
I'm 20 to 30.
Wow. Wow. Huh. It's all over the map. Can anyone interpret this data for me? Oh, okay, good. It's getting more curmudgeonly, isn't it?
We're going to take bets now. Who's going to win? Oh, no.
It does look like a horse race, doesn't it?
Yeah, really.
All right, you guys want to know the right answer, huh? It's surprising. We actually drove it to 28%. So Pia, excellent guess, okay? Tons of experiments, and it was actually that ratings wizard that drove it. And the thing I want to illustrate, first, these proxy metrics are really important. Just, it eventually gave us a clue that personalization in the long term could be valued by customers. It would delight them. The cool thing, a lot of the decisions were not that hard. We could put stuff out and test. We could look at the data and just make a decision. So, for instance, imagine we actually created a 5-star rating system. You rated from 0 to 5 stars how much you liked the movie. And then damn Facebook went worldwide and they created this very simple gesture of thumbs up or thumbs down. And the A/B test revealed that we actually got 20% more taste data using the simple gesture. And so we switched based on A/B test results to the Facebook gesture that you see today. And my point here is because of just let's test it and then looking at the data, a lot of decisions were not that hard. The hard ones where you couldn't test, or there's some other hard ones where the business says you shouldn't do something, but for other reasons, either because of delight or building hard to copy advantage, you chose to ignore, the business. All right, so I got some more wicked hard decisions, 3 more of them. I've given you lots of context, and we're going to dive into it. My first one's from 2007, and then I'm going to bring the last 2 to now. These are now wicked hard decisions. So I've told you it was really hard to talk these device partners into working with us. We launched streaming. We didn't have a ton of title. Our membership today, it's 183 million. Back in 2007, it was closer to 5 million. We went to PlayStation, we went to the Wii, we went to the Xbox and said, hey, we're going to do this magic where all your members can stream movies to the television. And those were the TV-based systems which we could stream to. And nobody wanted to work with us. And at this moment in time, 10% of our members were streaming at least 15 minutes a month. That was our proxy metric for streaming. And it was all on laptops because that was the only place that you could watch. And we actually did a painted door test. We put it out there on our site for Netflix members. For $80, they could get a magic box from us that would let them connect to the TV. And lots of people said yes, they would do that. It was a painted door test. We said, oh, never mind, it's not available in your zip code. But we knew there was very high demand for this TV connected device. And so we spent about 1.5 years to 2, a large team of engineers, eventually got up to like 100 peeps, to build this magical device. And Barry McCarthy, our CFO, came back from Wall Street and he said, ugh, investors are not happy with our plan to launch this piece of hardware. Do you know why, Dave? They were wary about our plan to launch hardware? Or Pia or Emily? What's wrong with hardware?
It always costs a lot more money than you think.
Yeah.
It gets old quickly.
Exactly. It's low margin business. And we had no expertise in shipping boxes back and forth across the Pacific Ocean the way Apple does so well. And then our partners were wary, and this, they wouldn't work with us, but they were also pissed that we might have an insider advantage, that we would always be able to do stuff before them or take advantage of the fact that we own this device. You can imagine how frustrating that was to us. They wouldn't work with us, but they didn't want us to launch our own box. So it's 1 month from launch. And what do? Do you stick with your plan, knowing that your stock price is going to drop, knowing that Xbox and PlayStation and Wii will be annoyed with you, but knowing you're giving tons of value to customers, you're delighting them, knowing that you're going to begin to learn? And that's the question I'm putting to you via Slido. Do you want to launch or not launch this device? And I'm not going to ask Emily or Pia or Dave what they think for a while. I don't want to influence the vote here.
So we got a voice from Toronto.
Oh, what?
Aaron saying, shall we spoil what Aaron says?
Not if it gives any secrets away. I'm very wary of Toronto folks.
No, he's actually just saying don't ship. So that's Aaron's voice.
Okay, so what? I also want to hear a positive voice. So Toronto, can you give me a reason not to ship? But I want to see some optimistic folks. Or imagine that you're one of this team of 100 engineers and someone's contemplating not shipping your work that you spent 1.5 years on, and no opportunity to learn. Like, do you understand that this is a wicked hard decision? Okay, Pia, what do you see from the data?
It kind of goes up and down. Yes, no, they're 50, and now yes goes back to 48. No. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I imagine people are deeply curious about what we did, so we chose not to launch. And there's no right or wrong on this, and I will say it worked out in the end. But I just want to give the logic at the time. So the first thing was this $15 million that we spent. It's called sunk cost. So don't worry about the money you spent. Just think about what you're going to invest in going forward. And we knew that we wanted to invest in streaming and content, and frankly in personalization to help you find movies that you love. And so we didn't worry about the $15 million. I just want you to notice it took me a long time to find a piggy bank that was underwater. The next thing was, this is a sort of a cultural thing. Netflix had learned to be maniacally focused. And then, we sort of realized that we couldn't be great at both hardware and the software that's part of the experience today. And the culture influenced the decision. And then imagine you're Barry McCarthy, you're the CFO of the company. You stand up in front of this freight train, of 100 engineers a month before launch, and you say, I think this plan is wrong. Like, think about the daring and the bravado of that, and the cultural experience where somebody would accept somebody saying that. And for me, one of the lessons was the difference between urgent and important. It was important to get to where Emily wants us to be so she can watch anytime and anywhere, but it didn't have to happen that month. And what actually happened is about 9 months later, the Xbox finally said yes. And in their first month, they had 1 million folks streaming to TV. And Xbox was the #3 game company at the time. And as soon as the PlayStation, who was #2, saw that, said, we need that. And as soon as the Wii saw it was on PlayStation, they said, we need that. And this got the virtuous cycle going, where today it's available everywhere. So if you're trying to build a platform, it requires patience. You can't have an inside position. And so I think in hindsight, it was a great decision. For those that know, this was actually, we threw all those people out of the building, those 100 engineers, and this is the formation story for a startup called Roku. So that box was shipped, but by a startup called Roku. It worked out reasonably for them. All right, so I have 2 today questions. So I did a little provisional decision-making up front, without giving anyone any data. So I'm going to give a little bit more. So this exists. There is a Chrome extension. You can go to Patreon. You can find it. And this little Chrome extension, if you install it, will let you, in this case, it's Stranger Things, watch Stranger Things. chat, heckle your friends, whatever, while you're watching it together. And this is members. You can do it with people all over the world. And obviously, today in COVID-19 era, where people are looking to connect, this is like, good and interesting idea. However, I want to give you some consumer insight about Netflix and the social, and I gave you some clues about it. We actually had launched this idea called Friends back in 2005, and we pounded on it. The idea is that we'd help you connect with your friends. You'd get great movie ideas with your friends. You wouldn't want to leave the service because all your friends were there. It would improve retention. And at the end of the day, only about 5% of our memberships engaged in this. And to my thinking, if you only have 5% of members, you don't have a shot at actually improving retention. To my mind, you need maybe 20 or 30% to engage to have a meaningful shot at taking retention from 2% down to 1.9% of folks canceling each month. That's huge from a business perspective. We had actually experimented with this idea. It was called Xbox Party Mode, and we killed it in 2010. Same thing, about 5% used it. And our thinking was if you did 5%ers, you ended up, we called them barnacles. These little things, these little edge cases that you always forgot about, and they always created a lot of complexity. And we would scrape the barnacles. We would get rid of, this is why all this killing existed, so that the boat could run faster, okay? And then actually Netflix expanded internationally. It didn't have, millions of money to invest in every country, so that they tried it again. There was this feature called Tell a Friend, where you were watching a movie like Orange is the New Black or Ozark or whatever, and you loved it, and you could send a message to a friend, even if they weren't a member. It was magical. It would do it via Facebook or Instagram or WhatsApp or email or whatever. And then it got killed in 2018. And my theory is, yet again, it was a 5%er. So it was killed. It was scraped. So I just want to give you a little insight about social and Netflix and movies, okay? There's two things. Your friends have sucky movie tastes, okay? And this is true. Think about the movie ideas that you've gotten from friends, and they're like, really? It's really hard to find great friends that share your tastes. And then the other thing that goes on is that we all have these guilty pleasures. We don't want everyone to know what we're watching all the time. And this is a fine idea at Spotify, for instance. And Facebook's powered by social. It turns out it hasn't worked that well historically in the context of movies. So today, here's the opportunity. This little Chrome extension went from 500,000 to 1 million usages in the last month. In fact, 10 million downloads, which suggests this is going up and to the right. Obviously, are the times changing enough to make this a good idea? And you're the engineering team at Netflix launching this, as a real thing without going through the little freakiness of installing Chrome extension is easy to execute. It's wicked hard to copy because it's the beauty of Netflix's application programming interfaces. So I'm positing that if they execute it, it's actually hard for a Disney Plus or HBO Max to copy. And then get on laptop and then to all devices by the end of the year. And the question I want you thinking about is, will this delight customers in these hard to copy margin enhancing ways? Will there be enough delight such that you have a meaningful shot at improving retention? Or will there be enough happy and delighted members that rave about this service, that build word of mouth, that bring even more members into the service? Because there are only 183 million today, and Netflix wants to grow to 500 million or 1 billion. So put it another way, should Netflix try social again? And you can tell they've been willing to try and retry it. And is this the time that social might really work? So I'm going to put it to you. If you were the head of product at Netflix, would you launch or not launch this idea? How you doing, Emily, Pia, Dave? You guys scratching your heads on this one? Is this hard or easy to figure out? Is there a right answer? No.
I give it a yes.
You gave it a yes. What's your
But I
thinking?
have a lot of fear of missing out, and I think that if all of my friends were watching Netflix shows together, I would probably sign up for Netflix.
Got it. Have you ever done something like this before, Pia?
A Netflix party or?
You shared watching online.
No, to be honest. But yes.
Yeah.
Actually, I think we did. We watched actually an opera with my uncle, but we both watched it separately, and then we met in the break.
Yeah.
That was fun. So I just thought it would be also great to do with Netflix then.
How are you doing, Emily, on this one? Is this a good idea to you or not?
Yeah, and it looks like we have around 54% of people that also would launch Netflix party.
Now, I noticed the provisional thinking changed a little. Before, I think we were 2/3 yes and 1/3 no. The no grew. I think it's because I gave some more data, all that consumer insight and the tattered history of Netflix social. Where are you on this one, Dave?
I would do it. I would not expect margin enhancing ways or enhanced margin out of it.
Okay,
it's more of a.
Okay, keep going.
Yeah, for me, it's more of a marketing thing, especially now in the COVID situation. You say, okay, you can do that, but yeah, it's just something new that you can use. It's like a delight feature, but it wouldn't bring me to subscribe for Netflix just for that alone. That's my personal opinion.
I know it's your personal opinion. Okay, launch or not launch. So. This is speculative, right? I'm just going to tell you what I would do and the thinking behind it, and there is no right or wrong answer. So I would choose not to launch, and I just want to share my thinking. So the first thing is we are not normal people. Okay, we're all collected. We're using Google Slides plus Slido, streaming to your laptop or mobile device. We're using StreamYard. I mean, we are freaks, and I refer to us as Silicon Valley freaks or Bern freaks or Zurich freaks or Toronto freaks. We're not normal people, and this is the reason I would never do focus groups or qualitative or usability in the San Francisco Bay Area. I would go to Texas or Bern or I didn't mean to say Bern. I would go to normal places or with non-freaks because we're all freaks. And so you just have to be a little careful about if you think it's a great idea, to use your judgment for normal people. Because the main thing, I don't think this is going to go beyond a 5%er. And I heard your logic, Dave. But if there's no delight, then you're not going to have a hard to copy advantage and you're not going to improve the margin. But the main thing is think about Netflix. You're trying to build a product where movie enjoyment is made easy. And creating a very simple experience means saying no to a lot of this stuff. So Dave, I heard your thinking, but here's my thinking, which is, and I think you know this as a dad, imagine the hardship of just getting your 2 daughters and your wife to agree on one movie that you're going to watch at the same time together in your living room. Everything about that is hard, right?
Definitely is.
It is. Yeah. So now imagine how hard it is to agree with people around the world on the movie that you're going to watch, the time, et cetera. And this is why Netflix lets, I'm sure Dave is often streaming 2 or 3 things in the household at once. Okay. So this just, if you did something like this, it goes against the grain of creating this wonderfully simple product where movie enjoyment is made easy. So I have one last case for you. It's actually a little bit simpler. And I want you to think about it. I think there's a guy named Eddie. He's the product manager at Netflix today. And he notices that 0.5% of Netflix members haven't used the service in the last 12 months. That means people signed up a year ago, and maybe they signed up by mistake, or they didn't really understand they were getting, or they forgot they have a subscription. And he says, this doesn't feel right. So he says, gosh, we'll send an email notification to all these inactive members asking a simple question. Hey, we noticed we're not using it. Would you like to cancel? And his thinking was, all right, we will auto cancel any member that says, yeah, please cancel me, or we make it wicked easy for them to cancel. And if we get no response, then we'll just auto cancel. And this is his idea. And the impact doesn't require an A/B test, nothing. If you do this, this is a $100 million decision. You will lose $100 million. And so this is the question I put to you. Will this delight customers in hard to copy margin enhancing ways? And I've just told you that you're going to lose $100 million. But the question is there enough delight in doing this? And is there a hard to copy advantage you're building even more by doing this? So I'm going to put it out to you. Would you launch or not launch this feature? And I'm going to ask it within Slido. So this is your job. You're the product manager. And I just want to know if you think there's enough delight and hard to copy advantage to do this in order to negate the $100 million loss. Dave, does that feel like a high stakes or a low stakes decision to you?
Well, very high stakes, and give me 5 years to test it.
What about you, Emily? Does that feel like a high stakes or a low stakes decision?
I guess it feels high stakes. I put yes, but now I'm leaning back towards no.
Oh, well, tell me more. Why were you leaning back to no?
I guess if it's only 0.5%, maybe it's just like something that they don't even register as being super nice, and then you just lose the money.
Doing $20 billion in revenue, maybe $100 million decision is a low stakes decision. Okay, and guess what? If you got it wrong, Emily, could you reverse that?
Going forward, yes, but you can't get back the money.
Yeah, but next year you don't have to do it next year, right? It's totally reversible. All right, so I'm going to tell you what I would do and why, and I appreciate it a lot. It was like 3/4 of the folks leaned into this, and so I would launch. And here's my thinking. So the first is the hard to copy advantage is the brand. So guess what? Netflix did this week. Okay, does that make you feel better? Does that make you feel good about Netflix, the brand, and the service? And I'm guessing it does, right? And then it's worth spending $100 million to do the right thing and to build that hard to copy advantage. And that's why I'm an advocate of it. And I was teasing with Emily. I actually think that Emily had it right. It's a low stakes decision. It's only 100 million against 20 billion, and it's reversible. And most of us really sweat these decisions. You know, I got married almost 30 years ago, and one of my friends said, "Hey, Gib, if you get it wrong, you can always get divorced." He was just saying this is reversible. It's not as high stakes as you think, right? It's worked out, right? I've been married all that time. All right, and so this has worked out through a series of decisions. These are all the key ideas that have driven the company forward. And then I said, I'm going to spend a little time trying to abstract some decision-making principles. So the first thing, I love it when I'm with teams and you know, ask enough, like I would have a boss, like when I was early at Electronic Arts, he'd say, "Hey, what would you do, Gib?" And I would like blubber, like, and one of my pals said, "Hey, Gib, when he asks you a question, just ask him questions back until you have enough data and information to form your own opinion." Because he just wants to engage in debate. Because most decisions get better if you can have a meaningful discourse. And so this is the behavior I look for with all teams. It's really important. And then I spend times with a lot of teams, you know, intuitively people can get it like right 50% of the time. And then I just try to help them to get to 70%. The reason I'm not trying to get them to 100, if a team is getting it right 100% of the time, they're frankly not taking on enough risk, okay? So these are the things that I focused on. Do you have a strategy, tactics, and metrics that inform a lot of these decisions? And practice the consumer science. Test it. You get more insight. And then frame the stakes and the process, how you go about making these decisions. Is it high or low stakes, for instance? And once you have about 70% of the data, just make a decision and go. You know, my wife, when I was choosing new jobs, she had a rule. She's like, "Gib, your decision doesn't get better with time." When I woke up on Monday morning, I just had to decide what I was going to do or not. Decide and go. It slows things down if you try to get more and more data. And then risk taking is part of the job. And then, frankly, you're going to get it wrong. So maintain your humility and just reflect on those learnings. So Netflix, this is them celebrating 100 million members, being a leader in original content. It's amazing. And it's actually a big part of the success is culture. And culture defines the values of the company, which inform these decisions. A lot of these came out of the culture. So the company's very candid. Everybody just talks what they think. And it's created this culture where people are very comfortable with the debate, decide, and do. And there's intellectual curiosity that's driving folks to be obsessed. How do we delight customers? How can we make them, what could be better? Which is amazing. And then think about Barry McCarthy, the CFO of the company, stopping the 100 engineers, the freight train of launching the Netflix device. Courage is part of that culture. And that enables the focus. That Netflix maintained its focus on creating software and movie watching experience and chose not to do hardware. It's amazing. So I'm just going to give you a quick, sometimes I think of them as 10 steps, but it's not really linear. So I call it 10 habits. I wrote an article, an essay on Medium. Nothing bad will happen if you find it, just talking about the stuff. So I just wanted you to get interested enough. So I've talked about that point. I actually was using a tactic with you saying, without very little data, make a provisional decision. And then ask yourself, what additional data do I need to make a better decision? And how much time will I give myself? How will we make it? And then you can tell it's wicked important to tease out high or low stakes. We screwed up that in the lawsuit, but then handled it. Netflix clearly handled it well in that 100 million decision. And then make sure somebody's representing the voice of the customer. And then be open to these long-term bets. Like, people do get a little stuck in optimizing. Remember your strategy. And remember, personalization is wicked important, or building a world-class brand is really important. That's why we should lose the $100 million. And then make sure you're thinking about the strategy. I used just one model, but multiple times today with you. And then think about the values of your company. Does that impact your decision? And then put 70% of the data and make a decision and go. And then the last two ideas is, once you make a decision, commit to it. Get everybody on board. You don't want to be that person that is trying to get the company going in the other direction. And I call that debate, decide, and do. Netflix would have an intense debate, but then everybody was committed, even if they thought it was a sucky idea, to doing it. And then, you're going to get it wrong, and then just commit to the learning. And so that's a little summary of those 10 habits. So I'm going to bring it home with just one last thought. This is Reid Hoffman. He's a famous dude. He's the chairman now of LinkedIn. He was an angel investor in a zillion different companies. And he does a podcast called Masters Scale. And Reid Hoffman interviewed Reed Hastings, the CEO of Netflix. It's kind of fun. Anyways, Reid Hoffman said, "Hey, Reed Hastings," it was kind of goofy with two Reeds, "what's more important, culture, strategy, or this notion of consumer science, the A/B testing? What's more important in the success of Netflix?" And Reed Hastings looked at Reid Hoffman like he was a frickin' idiot, and he said, "Yes." His point was, it was all three of those things, that combination of culture, strategy, and consumer science, which has been a big part of Netflix's growth from that sucky website that you saw in 1997 to the experience that you had last night. With that, I'll say thank you. I've got a bit of a Stranger Things motif, and if you know me well, I'm not quite done. There's just one more thing I want to do. Sometimes I feel like a street performer breathing fire. There's the people in the crowd around, and then the street performer does this incredibly stupid thing, which is they pass the hat. And that's when I skulk away, and I'm sure you skulk away. This is that moment, but I'm not asking for money. I would just love your feedback. So you can hold up your phone as though you're taking a picture with your camera app. You don't have to, you don't need a QR code reader. And there's a scale from 0 to 10. 0 sucks, 10 is great. Choose any number you want. The higher the number is better, lower number is worse. Pick any number you want on that scale. This is my 515th survey data. This is how I've learned to do talks and workshop and virtual exec events, even writing, frankly. And then I just love one idea about something that was good from this talk? And then on the last question is, what's one thing that could be better? And your feedback is incredibly helpful. This is actually the first time I've done this talk online using Slido, etc. Dave found it by digging in the dirt on my website. So this, I'm deeply curious to know what you think about this. If your Android device with a lollipop didn't work, this is the same QR code here. Right now, Emily's popping some links into the comments on YouTube. It's just waiting for you. There's a SurveyMonkey link. There's a PDF for the presentation I've shared with you. There's a link to the article, 10 Habits for Making Wicked Hard Decisions on Medium. So if your Android lollipop device didn't work, and Emily's provided you with multiple links. And if you go to gibsonbiddle.com at the top, there's a link saying, hey, ProductTank Zurich peeps, click here because I built you a page of all the stuff that you need. I don't collect email addresses. Nothing bad will happen. So with that, I truly say thank you and encourage you to check out Tiger King because it's a really wild story. Okay. Probably a guilty pleasure, so maybe you don't tell your friends that you watched it. So, okay, I'm going to shut up now. Dave, Pia, Emily, how y'all doing?
Good. Got some positive feedback already about the talk.
Oh, well, that's good. That's good.
Should we go into the first questions?
Absolutely. Go crazy.
Okay, perfect. I'll start. It's actually a question from me. How do you validate that you've made the right decision?
Oh, isn't this wild? I started reinforcing all these wicked hard decisions that there aren't right or wrong answers. So for instance, Netflix could have launched its own hardware device, its own Roku device, if you will. We don't know. My intuition is we did the right thing, okay? So, that's one of the reasons I try to get people comfortable with getting 70% of the data, not trying to get 100% because there is no really right or wrong answer. And frankly, you're going to get it wrong 30% of the time. So don't chew up more time. My wife says to me, Gib, your decisions don't get much better with time. Like, that's kind of mean. Okay, whatever. We're still married. And some of them, like let's imagine that you had a product and you decided to launch Netflix Party Mode. I would hope that the metric that it might be useful by maybe 20% of the members. And frankly, if you got that, I would just be pleased for you, okay? Because you got a shot at actually improving retention. And I'm guessing if 20% of the members are using it, we'd get that word of mouth boost that Dave was looking for. So many paths to success is the short answer to my question. Your question, Emily. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cool. So I'll continue with the most popular one, asked by Julian Ott, I guess from Germany. So what do you think of this combination of cannabis and Netflix series that they mentioned a few months ago? I'm not aware of that. I don't know if some of you are.
There's a series about marijuana, cannabis on Netflix.
I don't know if it's a series or if it's the idea of combining, because it's legal in California. Like if it's
yeah, I can't tell if this is
providing this stuff. So maybe if someone who knows it can add some more info in the comment section.
Is it all you can smoke?
Probably.
I don't know. All I know on cannabis is it's so the regulations haven't been sorted out yet. So it's a hard business, a hard startup environment to work in. In the States, you're essentially going state by state. It reminds me of like the online wine business has been going through this for the last 20 years. There's still kind of state by state regulations that makes delivery of wine challenging the way I'm sure cannabis is even more challenging today.
Cool. So we have another question from Salvador. The question was how to know if we have invested too much time in taking a decision, and what tools can we use to speed up decision process? So it's all about time to decision, kind of.
Yeah. So I did write an article called, I basically use a tool. It's called a quarterly product strategy meeting, where I assess the level of resources in these different swim lanes, different things that are being baked for a company. And let's see. So that's one of my most important management tools. It's called How to Run a Quarterly Product Strategy Meeting. Go figure. It's on Medium. How do you, I guess I'll parse it a different way. How do you know if you've got 70% of the data? I guess that would be a good question. So let's use the Netflix party. Actually, pretty good proxies, like the 500 going to 1 million in usage, the 10 million downloads. That's showing a meteoric rise. I think what I would do in real life is spend a little time trying to figure out what kind of people those customers are to verify my hypothesis that they're freaks. They're not normal people. And then in today's case, I whitewashed it a little bit. My guess is that Netflix would choose to test something like that first. And then they would discover if I was right or wrong that only 5% of the members would use it. Because if it went to 20%, then I would nicely say I was wrong. So that's a nice, that's a nice way to get additional data. I would try to find some, relatively lightweight way to test that idea. I'd pick it one platform just to get a little bit more data. But my intuition is that most people at Netflix, because of the long series of failure with social, would lean back on that. They would choose not even to test it because of all that overwhelming data sharing that social hasn't been successful. Those are my guesses. It's a very subjective thing. Generally, your gut says to you, maybe I'm procrastinating on this, okay? So listen to that gut.
Makes sense.
Cool.
So a lot of people want to know a question from Anonymous, so we're not sure who, but they want to know, what's the hardest decision that you've ever made?
It's always around people. So, that's choosing to let somebody go. Early in my career, I was running product for the Learning Company in Mattel, and one day I had to hop on a plane by myself and let 250 people in a development shop in Minneapolis go. For sure, those are the hardest decisions for me. They're painful. Having said that, a common challenge for new and developing leaders is procrastinating on letting a person go. And frankly, in almost every instance, I go through that initial pain, and then the person realizes they were not the right person at the right job in the right time, and 3 or 6 months later is super happy in that new role, which is a fundamentally better fit. So actually, that's the area where I see procrastination the worst. And I know there are cultural differences and even legal differences, but they're always the people decisions. Those are the hardest for me.
Cool, thanks for that. So in the meantime, TechnoKid helped us out with this cannabis thing. So I'll try to show that on the screen. So supposedly they said that they're going to bring out a few different sorts of cannabis to have one fitting every series. Customers that can buy the right sort, so to have the right high while watching. So I guess all of us learn a thing.
On this. It sounds like it's like a little team at Patreon did the Netflix party function, and it sounds like there's another little outside team. Netflix recognized the brand has gone in wild directions. There was Netflix and Chill. We didn't orchestrate that in any way. That was all from members. There's a cute Ben & Jerry's ice cream that I saw later, which is Netflix and Chill ice cream from Ben & Jerry's, which I thought was pretty cute. So I have no idea what's going to happen with this thing.
So we move on with a question by Andre Lopez, who's asking, how much of your product success was intentional and how much was accidental? How can you move the needle towards the former?
Well, those 10 habits, honest to God, are things that I learned the hard way and sort of getting it right 50% of the time to maybe 70% of the time. the work that we do is this incredible blend of chaos and discipline. So we're all engaged in inventing the future and innovation. It is chaotic. It almost needs to be chaotic. And so those 10 habits, especially getting focused on product strategy, on metrics, on the consumer science and A/B testing, brings a little bit of the discipline to that chaos. But it is a balancing act between the two. If you overmanage things, you won't have the positive surprises. And if you don't apply any sort of discipline, you might be thinking you're trying to improve retention at Netflix, and by mistake you give birth to a cannabis thing. I have no idea. But discipline points stuff in the right direction. Gosh, I feel like my whole career is like the only things you see on my resume today are the things that work. I excised my failures. I did a startup for folks with dyslexia. It was a neuroperformance thing that failed. That was 2 years of banging my head on the wall. I did my first software startup was called Creative Wonders. We built Sesame Street software and Schoolhouse Rock and Madeline the Little French Girl. And then when the internet started going strong, I was part of a team called Family Wonder. So if you're looking for something fun to do with your kids and family or something to buy, you go to familywonder.com. And that was the beginning of the internet era. And that was a huge failure, right? But you just sort of pick yourself up and brush yourself off and nicely assume that everything you learn is going to be helpful going forward, which is generally true. Okay. And then you learn over time to embrace more risk, just to be a little bit bolder, which is hard. Playing safe doesn't let you do cool, exceptional things in the long term.
So I found this other question a little bit further down, but I thought it's still very interesting. What is the role of leaders in the age of AI? What and how should the leaders learn and stay updated? Technological expertise? ?
Yeah, I'm probably the worst person to ask that question. I'll generalize it. We're in an industry that changes pretty quickly. I'm always at risk because I'm 58 years old of aging out. I'm older than dirt. So I spent a lot of time with 20 and 30-year-olds, trying to understand the new tools and technology. And this is one of the downsides of not working every day at a company. So I guess my short answer is, if I cared a lot about AI and machine learning, I'd be going out to lunch with a lot of engineers at Netflix today. I'd be building my community of peers in that area. And I've done this my whole career. I build my community of peers with product leaders at different companies. They're all going through similar issues. I call it a personal board of directors. I have a collection of mentors and peers that help me get smarter about all that stuff. I'd probably be taking courses on Coursera or Udacity on AI. I'm sure there's just like a treasure trove of data and information. And if we all spent a little less time streaming on Netflix, we'd have a lot more time for online courses and learning, which is totally accessible.
Stream the courses. That's kind of the message.
Yeah.
I also like your first part of the answer, right? So reach out to your network. You don't have to know everything yourself, right? So that's a big part of it too.
Totally.
So we have a couple of people wanting to know what Tom asked. So how did you, actually this is when defining proxy metrics, like the percentage of users who use X feature in a certain time frame, how do you determine what the right time frame is?
It's hard. So I wrote a series called How to Define Your Product Strategy. It's like a 12-part essay. Every essay is 3 minutes long. And somewhere in the middle, there's an essay on how to define proxy metrics. It's worth reading. The NPS for that series is like 83, okay? There's a lot of value in it, I believe. Now to answer your question, I gave a couple of proxies. Let's do the launch of streaming in Netflix. It's January 2007. We got to this place where the percentage of members that watch at least 15 minutes in a month was our proxy metric. Brent Avery was the product manager. We launched it. At launch, we had 5% of our members watching at least 15 minutes in the course of a month. Why a month? We're a monthly subscription service. And, our job was to give enough value in a month that they stayed, and they didn't cancel at the end of that month. Why 15 minutes? That was the shortest, smallest increment of value. The shortest TV episode was 15 minutes. So that was a metric that was about, and frankly, I never use averages. Like we didn't do, we weren't trying to move average minutes up. And the reason for that is you could have a bunch of freaks watching 80 hours in a month that drove the average up, but you weren't creating enough goodness for a wide variety of people. And frankly, I make it sound easy today, but we would debate these proxy metrics a lot, especially that personalization one, the percentage that engaged in ratings, 50 ratings in the first 2 months. Why 2 months? We went longer because we were hoping it would be sort of a habit. We wanted their taste data on an ongoing basis. Most of the work I do, I'm very focused on new members. Like Netflix, when I started there, it was like 2 million. And, my thinking was, it's the new members stupid. We had to be great at bringing new members in the system. So we were maniacally focused on them. And our thinking was existing members, there's two things about them. They don't notice any change and they complain about it, but they don't cancel. So at Netflix, most of my focus, the proxy metrics were on those early timeframes. Anyways, this is hard. That 3-minute essay will give you much more insight into this stuff.
It was a good start, though. Thank you.
Thanks. So I'll continue with a question. I know that you're also giving a speech about how to hack your product career later today, or did you give that this morning in Brisbane?
I'm done.
You're done? Okay. Too bad. So
today.
So I'll still ask that question. It's actually coming from Saki Mill, who's from Uttar Pradesh in India. We learned earlier in the show. So Saki is wondering, what will be the most important learning that you could share to someone whose goal is to become a VP in a few years?
Watch what you wish for.
And the long answer?
The long answer. So in that talk, okay, probably the super fuel is build your community of peers, mentors. I call it a personal board of directors. That's been the most helpful thing for me. And if I ask a gang, 10% will say that they have that. 90% say they don't. I became a VP for the first time I was a co-founder of a startup. I didn't really want to be one. I loved, going windsurfing on the bay every day and walking in flip-flops and shorts into work. But that's, I realized that I had the skills. My boss wanted me to behave like a leader, so I kind of cleaned up my act. I said, hey, Greg, how do I get better at being a product leader? He said, build your community of peers. So I've been doing that for like 30 years. It's really helpful. And then acknowledge that there's a sort of career ladder. At the beginning, can I build anything? Can I build something great? Can I build an organization? I found myself building teams to build the stuff. And then can I build a company? And that's somewhere between building an organization and company. That's when I was a VP. And frankly, there's a thing after building a company, which is, can I build an industry? And that's why I joined Netflix, to invent the industry that we call streaming today. That essay is 17 minutes long. And it's called Hacking Your Product Leader Career. It shows all the skills and progressions, the stuff that you learn along the way. It encourages you to recognize that, like building products, careers are an experimental process. You have to have theories and hypotheses. You need proxy metrics. And it's a 17-minute essay, which is way too long. Everybody says it can only be 5 or 10 minutes. But its NPS is like crazy. It's like 84. 70 is considered world-class. 50 is considered very good. So if you get an 80, I just call that dance on rooftops. Oh, good, you're sharing it. That's way cool. And
I just found it, so I'm sharing it.
No advertising. I don't collect your email. Nothing bad can happen.
And I think it's really wonderful what you're saying also, since, we're here at ProductTank, and usually we will go to an apro right now and really get to know each other. And I think that's also, even though we love remote, that's also part why we like ProductTank also in person, because that's exactly where you can build this community of peers, right? One of the reasons I think people also join those events, and I think that's really wonderful what you're saying, right?
Good. I'm glad it sounds wonderful to you. There's a lot of shit that comes out of my mouth, Pia.
Later today. Yeah. So should we take one or two more questions? What do you think? You
guys are in charge.
So there is jazzworld.ch who's asking right here. So Gibson, you stress hard to copy as being important, right? So how do you build this into your strategy as a startup when you're trying to move from 0 to 1? So kind of when you get started. That's
a great question. Yeah, there's a couple of nuances hiding in there. So the 0 to 1 part, honestly, you're just trying to find something that people like, okay? You're maniacally focused on the delight. And hoping that, in fact, you're actually trained to do things that won't scale, okay? But if you find these things that customers are saying are making their lives better, or solving a problem, a pain, whatever, now you have the delight. You're trying to get the product market fit, and I actually use NPS as a proxy for that. Like if I could get a 50 NPS on a likely to recommend on that punk startup product, I feel pretty good. And so once you're kind of getting some semblance of product market fit, now you could start thinking long term. And then now you're focused more on scale and the things that will build long-term advantage. So you don't have the disaster that I had, when I built a company that was worth 4 billion, and a year later it was worth 200 million. Like that sucked. I had failed to build hard to copy advantage. So it's after that. It's about on the 0 to 1, like do whatever it takes to create delight. From 1 on, now you're trying to combine these forces of delight, hard to copy advantage, and the margin. Okay. And then you're trying to do it in a scalable way. So this is why I call them starters and builders. Starters are very good at the 0 to 1, and builders are very good at scaling. I'm a builder. I mean, I have done starts before, I can do it, but I'm not that good at it. And I've noticed some people that are amazing starters and they're not builders. And frankly, there's something after me. I call them super scalers. Like I wouldn't have been the right guy to stay at Netflix to go from 20 million to 183. I look for startups with a proof of concept that are ready to scale. That's the one. And I take it to whatever it is, 100 or 1,000. But I'm out at 1 million.
So start with the delight, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for that. That's really helpful.
Cool. So I think we'll call it a day, at least for us in Zurich. My daughter didn't.
Are you drinking beer yet?
No, it's still water.
Oh,
I have to go to the fridge, which takes about a couple of minutes. So.
Well, that must be hard.
I'll switch soon, yeah. And my daughter didn't join. Something special happened. She seems to be offline, so she doesn't get her answer on the.
What was the question? What was the question? I can answer.
So Suits season I think 8 and 9.
Yeah.
Which ran in the US a couple of years ago, are not available in Switzerland.
Yeah,
and I know.
I can answer. So Suits is not original content from Netflix. So the advantage of original content with Netflix is they have the rights for 190 countries. So it's available everywhere. So Suits, it means that Suits gave the rights to Netflix for seasons 1 through 7 in the US, but the rights to Suits in Switzerland or Germany were taken by somebody else. And that deal was probably set up like 7 years ago, right? And it's just waiting for the 7-year period to end. And this is called windowing. It's available in different countries at different times. So tell your daughter that she can't get what she wants because of windowing. Okay.
The cool thing is that I can force her to watch 1.5 hours of our show now, because the answer to her question will come at the very end.
Very good. Okay. Well, thanks a ton for having me, Emily, Pia, Dave, ProductTank, and this is my second talk on World Product Day, and I I'll do a third. God, I don't even know what country. Somewhere down. Oh, it's LATAM.
Yeah, Latin America.
Yeah. And that's when I'm going to do. Actually, that person was right. I'm going to do my hacking your product leader career with them. I just happened to do it already this morning for another organization that will remain nameless.
Yeah. So again, thank you very much for the time you spent with us. I really loved it. Learned a lot, even though I read many of your articles before. So really cool to have had you here. And for all of you who joined us, we're most probably going to do another remote session the end of June. So follow us on LinkedIn and on Meetup, and you'll learn about all the details there. And as announced several times during this show, there are more product tanks that you can join. You can join also the one that Gib is doing later today. They're all available and can be found on the Mind the Product website. So thanks again for having joined us, and yeah, have a good reminder of your day. Thanks, Gib.
Bye. Thank you so much.
Bye.